Hello again, everybody. It's Mr. Wessner, continuing Mr. Wessner's Read Alouds of the story Take a Wetlands Walk, written by Jane Kirkland. Okay, this heading on this page is Get Ready to Become a Wetland and Watershed Wizard. Get ready to become a wetland and watershed wizard. If you're following along in your own copy, this is page 6 and 7 in your book. Clean water is vital to our planet. Do you know what vital means? It means extremely important. Clean water is vital to our planet. What we put in our water, such as industrial waste, affects the quality of the water in our watershed. What we put on the ground that seeps into the water, such as chemicals and fertilizers on our lawns and farmland, affects the quality of the water in our watershed. What we pour down the drain affects the quality of the water in our watershed. So much of what we do affects our watersheds. Pretty much everything we do, every aspect of our lives, has an impact on our watersheds. It's things we don't even always think about, but everything we do, everything that we are kind of doing in our daily life, eventually ends up in our watershed. Okay? But wait, do you even know what a watershed is? A watershed is a drainage basin. Now, even that may not have you quite sure what a watershed is. Basically, a watershed is the way that water drains out of the land. Okay? So there's a saying that we're all downstream from somewhere. We're all downstream. We all live downstream. What happens up in the mountains? The water that flows down from the mountains eventually flows into the lake behind me, Canoe Creek. Okay? Now, Canoe Creek is a man-made lake. It's an artificial lake that was made by putting a dam on a creek or on a stream. So this stream then drains down through the dam back into the rivers and waterways, and eventually all of the water from this area of Pennsylvania where I live, Blair County, all of our water flows. Does anybody know what river our water flows into? It's always a fun activity in class because we trace this, and we'll try to do that here digitally as well. But the water where we are eventually finds its way into, well, first of all, the Little Juniata River, or the Frankstown branch of the Juniata River. From there it flows into the Juniata River. From there it flows into the Susquehanna River. Then the Susquehanna River, which is the very large river by Harrisburg, by our state capital if you've ever been down that way, the Susquehanna River empties into an enormous body of water. And if you've ever been to the Maryland or Delaware shore, Virginia Beach, those areas, the eastern shore in Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, you've driven over the Chesapeake Bay. Okay? So the Susquehanna River drains into the Chesapeake Bay. So we are all considered part of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. That's our area. That's our home. Okay? That means, though, that what we do influences things. What we do here in Hollidaysburg influences things that happen in Harrisburg, in Maryland, okay, all the way down the river. Okay? So as the water melts out of the mountains, as the snow melts out of the mountains, rather, fills the streams fill lakes and bigger rivers, and then the rivers fill the bay and eventually get to the ocean. That's what a watershed is. Okay? Water doesn't stand still. It flows downhill. A watershed is the area of land that water flows over, under, and through on its way to a larger drainage basin, such as a large river or an ocean. Now, listen to that again. A watershed is the area of land. Because the word watershed has water in it, sometimes we get a little confused and we think, oh, a watershed is water. Well, it's really not. It's the area of land. It includes the water, okay? It includes the rivers and lakes and the streams, but it also includes the land. Our school buildings, our houses are all part of this watershed area. Okay? A watershed not only includes the land and the water, it includes the plants, animals, and humans that live there. So you are part of a watershed. The wetlands you explore are part of some watershed. The creeks, rivers, and lakes that you boat, fish, or swim in are part of a watershed. The health of the water you swim or bathe in, drink, and do your laundry in depends on the health of your watershed. To learn more about your watershed, ask your teacher, or do some research at your library or on the web. To find out the name and website of your watershed, you can visit a website that will tell you this. It's called EPA, that stands for Environmental Protection Agency, epa.gov/surf. And there are other websites. You can look up the Chesapeake Bay Foundation as well to look up information about our watershed and information about the Chesapeake Bay specifically. In the sidebar on this page that I've been reading, it says, scientifically speaking, wetlands can be divided into two major systems, saltwater and freshwater. Within those, there are 5 major categories of wetlands. They are marine, coastal, saltwater wetlands. Marine means of the sea. We don't have any marine wetlands in Blair County because we're not near the sea. We're a few hundred miles away. Estuarine wetlands are coastal wetlands where river water meets ocean water, creating a mixture of fresh and salt water. Estuarine means of an estuary. An estuary is where salt and fresh water combine. That's called brackish water, is the term for that. Then we have lacustrine wetlands, inland freshwater wetlands around lakes and reservoirs. Lacustrine means of a lake. Okay, there we are. Okay, so we are at a lacustrine wetland. Palestrine are isolated inland freshwater wetlands that are not part of a lake or reservoir. Palestrine means of a marsh. Okay, so if we were away from a lake and found a marsh, that would be a palestrine or a palestrine wetland. And then a riverine wetland, I bet you can guess that based on the root word, but freshwater wetlands along moving waters, which are called lotic, very good, such as rivers and streams. Usually, but not always, these are inland wetlands, and riverine means of a river. It ends here in this sidebar with coastal versus inland. Coastal wetlands are found in coastal watersheds. These are watersheds that drain into the ocean, an estuary, or the bay, a bay. All other wetlands are inland wetlands. Okay, so this is an inland wetland. It doesn't drain into an ocean, it drains into a river. So it's an inland wetland. It's away from the ocean. All right. Okay, on page 7 it goes on to say, I live near a wetland and I love exploring it. Wetlands are important to our planet. I hope this book will help you, or help people like you, to appreciate wetlands too. So before you head out to explore, I'd like to share some of the ways that wetlands help us. There are 5 main categories here, 5 main reasons that wetlands help us. Keep these in mind, remember these, because these are what really make wetlands so important to us. First is that wetlands are important habitats. They are habitats for many plants and animals. Some animals live in wetlands all their lives. Others spend part of their lives there. Wetlands are buffer zones. Wetlands help to protect us from floods by acting like sponges. They soak up water that might otherwise flood our homes, roads, and lands. All of the water that's in this lake, if this lake wasn't here, if we didn't have these marshes to absorb this water, that water has to go somewhere. So wetlands are very important. They can hold a whole lot of water. Okay? Wetlands are breeding grounds. Breeding means where animals go to have their babies. Fish, birds, amphibians, shellfish, and other animals breed in wetlands. They lay their eggs here. Tadpoles live here. All of those types of creatures would not be able to survive without areas like this, because that's what they need as part of their habitat. It's their breeding ground. It's where they have their young. Wetlands provide food. Plants, insects, bacteria, amphibians, fungi, and more that are found in wetlands are part of the food chain. And we even grow important foods for humans in wetlands, such as rice and cranberries. If you've ever seen those Ocean Spray cranberry commercials where the guys are standing in the water, that's a wetland. It's called a cranberry bog. Rice grows in a similar way in the places where it's grown. It's called a rice paddy. The last way here is that wetlands help to clean our water. The plants and soils in wetlands help to purify water before it becomes groundwater and drinking water. Wetland plants can even help to remove chemicals, pesticides, and metal from water. So having these areas to absorb that water, they filter it. It's a natural filter for our water, which is a pretty great thing. We don't need to use any chemicals. We don't need to use anything artificial. Wetlands naturally take some of the impurities in our water and filter those things out. So that's pretty great too. We have another sidebar here with some additional information. It has common names for wetlands. Most people know wetlands by their common names, such as swamps, marshes, prairie potholes, lakes, ponds, floodplains, cypress swamps, rivers, and streams. Wow, are there really that many types of wetlands? Yes, and even more. Do the math. Now this is a kind of cool activity to try out. Scientists estimate that every 2.7 miles of healthy wetlands can reduce a storm surge vertically by 1 foot. So storm surge is when water rushes into the land, like what we see in a hurricane. So one of the most devastating hurricanes in our country's history was Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Here it says the surge from Hurricane Katrina in 2005 was anywhere from 22 to 28 feet. How many miles of healthy wetlands were needed to protect New Orleans? So see if you can calculate that. If we have 2.7 miles reduces 1 foot, how many miles would it take to reduce 22 feet? What kind of math would that be? Okay, think about that carefully. And then try it out. And then figure out the same thing for 28 feet, and then you would know that your range would have been in between this many miles and that many miles of wetlands. Who cares? They do. The Chesapeake Bay Foundation, or CBF, is the largest conservation organization dedicated solely to saving the Chesapeake Bay watershed, which is huge. Their motto is Save the Bay. Learn more at cbf.org. cbf.org. So I think I mentioned the Chesapeake Bay Foundation a minute ago on the last page. So there's their official website. You won't have to Google them if you would rather just type that in. All right, that's where we'll stop with this section. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you next time.